Political turmoil escalated again today across Central Europe and South Asia, with several more outbreaks of violence being directly attributed to new features released in limited beta form last week on social media platform Tram. Tram founder Venice Parrish has pledged his company will act with all due consideration before launching the final release version of the new tools to its 4 billion users globally.
How soon will it be before AI deepfakes mean that we can no longer tell the difference between a real and a fake video? It's possible we're there already.
Maybe I'm an AI right now.
Okay, well, maybe not quite. At this point, there's little doubt that we will be there soon, and some tech billionaire will suddenly control the most powerful misinformation tool that has ever existed. Short of literally changing people's thoughts, we may never see anything more capable of swaying public perception one way or another. War propaganda will be imperceptible from genuine leaked video. At this point, it's clear that this is the road we're on, and we have well blown past the exit. Before long, we will finally have to learn that nothing on the internet can be trusted. If we don't learn this lesson quickly, we could all be at the mercy of a man like Venice from the new HBO film Mountainhead. Mountainhead is based in this potential future reality and features a cast of 4 billionaires that hold the fate of the world in their hands. The release of a new AI content creation tool makes advanced deepfakes extremely easy to create. Misinformation wreaks havoc over the world after its release on social media platform Tram. Unrest breaks out everywhere, and the old friends meeting for poker night discuss their potential to take over the world and forever change what it means to be human. So let's discuss Mountainhead in more detail. We'll review it and decipher what this dark comedy has to say about our future. The plot of the film is okay. The third act could use a little bit more punch. The film moves really slow after they decide to kill Jeff. It does a good job early on of a few things. It provides context through strategic character interaction and background news reports. Using these devices allows the movie to separate the occurrences in the outside world from the cast, so we can see exactly how they react when faced with the ramifications of their actions, without them having to put on a show for people who might actually be upset about these things.
Can you mute that for Ven?
I don't give a fuck.
Venice is the richest man in the world and the founder of Tram. As his new AI tool creates widespread panic, we see exactly how Venice is affected by this, and it's quite strange. His reaction feels not quite sociopathic, but definitely not normal. Ven is so far removed from the people who are being hurt by the actions of his company, he speaks about them as though they barely exist.
But why do people have to focus on the little niggly nubbins? It's like, are you people dumb? This has to fucking happen.
Yeah, you're always going to get some people dead.
Do you believe in other people?
I think one needs to.
Yeah, but do you? 8 billion people as real as us?
Well, obviously not.
This, quote, non-existence of other people allows the 4 billionaires led by Randall, Garrett, and Venice to plot a worldwide revolution in which they become the leaders, with the sole goal of going to other planets and uploading a human consciousness to a computer system in which all consciousness can reside. Randall is dying of cancer and refuses to admit that he's going to die, so he presses for a cure.
You're looking at certainly 5, probably 10, maybe 15 years before.
You're not a very intelligent person, are you, Dr. Phibbs? All the things we can do, and we can't fix one tiny little piece of gristle inside of me. Incorrect.
To which he's told repeatedly that there isn't one. And failing that, he pushes his 2 friends to merge their companies so that the AI technologies they produce can work together to accelerate the advancement of human computer technologies. This way, human consciousness can be decoded and uploaded into the cloud, a process that Randall says is,
by any traditional definition, you would have to call heaven.
This idea is not a creation of this movement, and is a genuine philosophy for some in the Silicon Valley circles. It's known as transhumanism, and I'll discuss it more toward the end of this video. This is what's motivating Randall, but he needs Jeff to work with Venice. Jeff's AI is far more advanced and coincidentally can also allow for people to tell the difference between real and generated content. This effectively kills two birds with one stone. It stops the chaos stemming from not knowing what is real, and it allows for advancement towards the ultimate goal of becoming transhuman. However, Jeff continually refuses to sell his AI to Ven. Eventually, things take a turn. Ven, Randall, and Hugo decide to kill Jeff in order to take control of his company. While all of this is taking place, the four are making plans to take over small nations and destabilize world governments, seemingly just because they think they can do a better job of leading the world than anyone else. In the end, the trio fails to kill their former friend, but manage to threaten him enough to get him to sign a contract releasing control of his company, and purchasing Hugo's meditation app for $2 billion. Finally, Jeff and Ven make up. Apparently, Jeff's able to forgive murder. The pair decides to cut Randall out of the deal that was made when Jeff was covered in gasoline, fearing for his life. Venice and Jeff move forward with only the two of them, and that's the end of the film. None of the taking over the world plotline is resolved in any way. As far as we know, the group is still working on taking over Argentina and other nations in South America, as well as attempting to, quote, coup out the United States. The whole movie runs just a hair under 2 hours at 108 minutes, which could probably be safely trimmed back to about 90 minutes without losing a whole lot. The first and second act are decent, but the struggle to kill Jeff goes on for too long, and the third act really doesn't feel like an act at all. There's only about 2 minutes of actual plot development. Most of it just feels like a wildly over-budget episode of Scooby-Doo. I can only see this as a failure in the plot development. It simultaneously leaves the viewer wanting more and wishing that the film would end, which is a bad look. The plot gets a 3 out of 10. Next, I'll briefly talk about the cinematography. The film takes place in the garish new mansion of Hugo Van Yock, the only member of the group who is yet to reach a net worth of over $1 billion. The film is almost exclusively shot in this beautiful mansion with a few cuts to the Utah wilderness. This remote getaway is a setting that speaks volumes to the elitism of the group. They make massive decisions that have huge impacts on the larger world as though they mean almost nothing. They are completely protected from the ramifications of their actions. Cinematically, nothing is particularly impressive about Mountainhead. When I'm scoring a movie, in order to exceed a better than average score of more than 5, the camera work needs to take an active role in the storytelling, and in Mountainhead, it just doesn't. There isn't anything inherently wrong with the movie cinematically, it's just boring. Once you get over the mountain views and the beautiful mansion, it doesn't add anything to the film. So I'll give it a 4 out of 10. The writing in Mountainhead provides a lot more than the cinematography. It's quick-witted and funny, but feels far too realistic to be called satire. I suppose the same could be said more and more about The Onion. It's the realism of the film that makes the movie good. The Silicon Valley bro whose money and influence has gone to his head is a trope that makes up the social media age. One of these overgrown frat boys deciding he can get together with a couple of his friends and take over the world in an evening seems to increase in likelihood every time a new AI model surfaces, or a politician tweets something stupid, or another country launches an invasion, inching us ever closer to a budding World War III. But hey, maybe Venice Musk is actually right, and the de facto nation states built by techno-autocrats and run on AI, rocket fuel, and cryptocurrency will in fact be a vast improvement over democracy. Sorry, I got a little off track there. Back to the writing. The genius of the movie is in its idea. The writer believed it's so important that the movie was conceptualized just 6 months before its release. This, of course, leaves some holes. As I mentioned, it gets a little slow in the third act. It feels like it's out of ideas. Genuinely, I think the writer overestimated how important a movie can be if you rush the project and leave the message delivery sloppy, which is exactly what the movie did according to its creator, Jesse Armstrong. After conceptualizing the film, he felt it necessary to release it in a timely enough fashion to capture the bubble of history that we're currently in. Well, I agree this movie is topical and its message does feel important. I'm not confident it would have been any less topical had they taken a few extra months to fine-tune the script and give the third act a bit of extra punch that it desperately needed. I also think that doing this could have created a film that delivers its message to a wider audience, that is more willing to hear it. If your message is delivered in a boring way, no one actually cares how great it is. The writing can only receive a 5 out of 10 for a great idea with some notable inadequacies that really hold back the film. This film on its face is essentially a character study of 4 pretty cookie-cutter Silicon Valley bro dudes. The best way to analyze them is to pick each each of the four of them apart, starting with Hugo, or Soup Kitchen. He's the poorest of the bunch with a net worth of about $500 million. Hugo is desperate to impress his far wealthier and more powerful friends. He gives Venice the master bedroom because he doesn't want to get ribbed about how small the guest rooms are. He's a prototype pick-me boy who just wants to play with the big kids but isn't smart, savvy, or lucky enough to really do it. I think the brilliance of Hugo's character is that it demonstrates that money may not be the driver we think it is for the 1%. In my opinion, the people running businesses worth hundreds of billions of dollars are more motivated by winning the capitalist competition. This is why the gang writes their net worth across their chests and howls into the wind. It's not about money, it's about keeping score. Hugo has more money than the average person could ever dream of, but it's not enough. And that's not because of his greed alone. Something else drives him to need more. It's because he's surrounded by people who are beating him in every way. I think the point to take away from this is that greed isn't a sufficient motivation for someone to push a business that far. It's about being the best in the world. It's about having more success than anyone else. Hugo's pathetic groveling to maintain acceptance in the group is one of the funnier points of the film, and it makes an important point. Hugo thinks he wants nothing more than to be a billionaire.
The cool thing about jumping in with a bill, dropping a bill chunk of bill, a bee nut, popping a bee nut. If you bust a bee nut into this app, it will give birth to a unicorn.
But all of his friends who are already there still focus on how much better they can do. There is no world in which a monetary number can make Hugo or anyone else happy. Whether it be hundreds of thousands, millions, or billions, the game can never be won, because someone else will always be right on your tail, waiting for you to get tired and let off the gas. Randall Garrett is the de facto leader of the group. He was the first investor in Tram and is referred to as Papa Bear. Randall is dying and refuses to accept that he can't be cured. There isn't much time spent on the small matter of Randall's impending death, however, because Randall has a plan. In seeing the aftermath of Tram's AI, he asks how long it might be before we are transhuman. Ven says it would be much faster if he had Jeff's AI, so Randall gets to work on manipulating Jeff to merge the two businesses. Randall is determined to find a way to live forever. This to me is a show of the highest degree of self-importance. In most cases, I try to find a way to understand the philosophical backing that leads people to do the things that they do. And I try to accept a point of view that has some validity, at least to any one person's specific experience and temperament. However, I can't come to grips with a philosophy that doesn't understand death to be the second most important feature of life. To me, this conclusion can only be arrived at by believing that you are so much better than humanity, you're functionally deserving of God status. I understand being afraid of death, the uncertainty of when and how it will happen, and of what may or may not happen after. To allow that fear to drive you to do something like upload your essence onto the internet in some desperate bid at an eternal life is something so far outside the realm of acceptable within my own value system that I can't quite fathom what reasoning you could have that convinces you that life is worth living if you can only live it as a collection of ones and zeros on a hard drive. Randall's fears are what leads him to move the group in more and more radical directions. He begins floating the idea of global evolution and great resets just to justify the horror that Tram is causing.
Yeah, it's so much better to do one big upgrade on the whole world than walking around with fucking patches, solving malaria.
Yeah.
Eventually, he decides to plot to take over the world as a group of autocrats. Ven and Randall lead this planning of taking over the world. They appoint Hugo to be the leader of Argentina. Jeff takes a sideline in this plot and laughs along, providing very little insight. The whole purpose of this from the perspective of Randall is to show Jeff exactly what they are capable of. It's an attempt to show him that he too could be this powerful if he just joined forces with them.
The great thing about me is that I know everyone and I can do everything.
None of these strategies have the desired effect though, and Randall ends up completely left out of the final deal in the end. Jeff is possibly the most sane character of the bunch, and seems to have at least some kind of morally grounded beliefs. He, however, doesn't let this inkling of a moral backbone get in his way. He simply uses it as an opportunity to criticize the decision-making of his friends and hold his superiority over their heads. He is determined to keep his business out of the hands of Venice, and doesn't really much seem to have any other motivation except to do exactly what he is already doing. And to his credit, I guess that's exactly what he does until it almost gets him killed. You kind of get the impression from Jeff's vibe that he considered himself not only to be better than the rest of his group, but also smarter. It almost seems like in the end of the movie, he got exactly what he wanted from Venice. But honestly, we have no way to even speculate about what Jeff wanted, other than his girlfriend not cheating on him while she's in Mexico.
Please don't let Hester fuck anybody!
Finally, we have Venice, who is the unstable, sociopathic owner of Tram. Venice is basically Elon Musk. It seems pretty clear that he's based off of Musk, and he's apparently motivated by creating ungodly amounts of technological innovation with no real regard for whether that innovation is actually a net positive. This tactic has worked well for him though, as he's the richest man in the world. He's become so powerful that he's apparently untouchable. The idea of killing his best friend has very little impact on him, as long as his friend remains an obstacle for his end goal. Ven's purpose is to demonstrate how far removed the Silicon Valley types have become from everyday people. He is exceedingly strange and willing to do anything to progress his business, which is basically the whole point of the movie. Venice shows us how little people like him care about anything other than themselves and their interests. His sole purpose is to scare the viewer about the possibility of a man like Ven becoming so powerful that he functionally rules the world. Overall, the characters don't change much, but that's kind of the point. These people don't have to reflect or change. They can surround themselves with sycophantic yes-men who are just grateful to be around anyone who's that powerful. The characters in this film are compelling because they are real, or at least they are a reality that the general public perceives. I can't say for sure how Elon thinks about the human beings around him. I can't say that every Silicon Valley tech giant is ready to take over the world at a moment's notice. But I can say that it sure feels like that's true. When analyzing the complexity of these characters, it's obvious they aren't much more than an SNL-style caricature. Unfortunately, this movie is like so many others. On the surface, it appears to be something deep and analytical, but it provides no real nuance to a discussion that desperately needs it. So the characters get another 3 out of 10. Thematically, there's a lot going on in Mountainhead, but primarily the theme is the billionaires are going to take over the world, which is fine. I get with Elon's recent role in our government and the specter of AI hanging over our heads, it feels like we are approaching the end times in short order. The movie does take some time to address the philosophy, so I'll talk about it briefly. Transhumanism takes up a significant amount of energy in this movie. This is the belief that humans will eventually become something like modified cyborg hybrids with technological upgrades so that we can surpass our biological limitations. Things like AI, Neuralink, and gene alteration are all forms of transhuman technological advancement. Some thinkers will say that human beings already have become in part transhuman because of the use of things like cell phones. While these have certainly helped us surpass our biological abilities in many ways, I believe that transhumanism requires an alteration that sufficiently alters the human biological capacity so that it could no longer be considered human. Implanting a computer module in your brain so that you could have instant access to the internet with your thoughts, for example, would be sufficient, in my opinion, to qualify as transhuman. The ethics of these things are obviously questionable. With how the internet in its current state seems to be affecting humanity already, it's more than possible that these kinds of augmentations will only progress the insanity of the instant gratification age further. Personally, I doubt the likelihood that we are that close to becoming transhuman. A large portion of the transhuman argument requires the consciousness of human beings to be something that can be decoded and replicated by a machine. So far, science has been unable to explain exactly what it is that makes up a consciousness, which leads me to believe that there is something more to consciousness than traditional science can prove the existence of. I don't believe, and I hope for the good of humanity, that your consciousness, whatever it consists of, can't be uploaded to some kind of computer network. I hope that we don't think that this is some kind of heaven. I hope that all of us live full, exciting lives and then die in peace so that the next generation can bring forth something new. The other philosophical question in the film is one of morality, and unfortunately it's not a very interesting question. Basically, the movie provides a simple problem with utilitarian ethics. It's the idea that if it's for the good of the world, then it's moral.
On utilitarian grounds, if we agree that the greatest happiness for the greatest number occurs in the absence of Jeff, then logically the question is not why would we kill Jeff, but why wouldn't we?
Which is a trap that moral relativism presents all the time. Functionally, all the characters in this film are nihilists. They don't believe that anything truly matters. So then of course there's no definitive moral structure, which makes utilitarian ethics seem like the obvious ethical groundwork. The problem with that is, there does seem to be a definitive moral structure, and the gang's failure to commit the murder of Jeff kind of proves it. If they truly believed that murdering Jeff would be a morally acceptable or even virtuous thing to do, any hesitation would be pointless. Their conscience would be clear. But that's not what happened. They still seem to have some kind of moral framework built into them. They can't act on their desire to commit this murder, even though they claim not to believe in the moral framework that would stop them from doing it. It is wrong to commit a murder, regardless if it is for the objective good of the world. And it seems as though the fact is built into our minds, and that's how the movie represents this. So, are the billionaires gonna take over? I don't know. And it seems like Mountainhead doesn't know either. None of the thematic elements are resolved, and this is another problem with the author pushing to get this movie out while it's still topical. It asks important questions, but provides no guidance for where we would even look for an answer. At the end of this film, everything seems basically the same as it is in the beginning. It suggests that we are basically at the whim of these people. So I guess it wasn't actually that important to rush along this movie, because from the perspective of the film, no matter what you or I do, we will all be powerless to stop the evil billionaires from taking over the world. Isn't that a happy thought? The theme of this movie gets a 3 out of 10, because much like the rest of this movie, it went nowhere and did nothing for anyone, but perhaps contribute to the ever-growing fear of the ruling class. I'm not saying that that fear is unwarranted, by the way. I just don't think it's useful. If you're scared of being taken over by autocratic dictators, you could at least try to do something. Call your congressman and demand regulation. Engage in civil disobedience. Start a new political party specifically designed to combat the degradation of our human rights by the government and corporations alike. I don't know what to do either, but definitely don't do nothing. Never let yourself believe that resistance is futile, because doing nothing makes you as useless as this mediocre movie. Its total score is 3.5 out of 10. It was a fun watch, but the more I wrote about it, the more I kind of understood it wasn't very good. Thank you for watching this video, and please hit like and subscribe if you made it this far, and maybe check out one of my other videos. I just did one on Holland, and stay tuned for my next video on Sydney Sweeney's new film, Echo Valley.